Good morning, class. How are you doing? That's great. So can anyone tell me what's sitting beside me? Mary, that's right. It's a saddle. Now, who has saddled a horse before? All right, so it's going to be a learning experience for all of you. So yesterday we learned about the horse parts, and last week we learned about the horse colors. So Jill, can you tell me what color of horse has a golden yellow pattern on it? That's right, Palominos. Now Bob, what's on the bottom of a horse's foot and it really hurts if they step on rocks, just like your guys' feet? A frog, that's right. Because remember, horses can step on frogs. Alright, so we're going to start out today with learning how to saddle a horse, the parts of a saddle, and the types of saddles. Now first off, before you saddle your horse, you want to make sure you groom your horse and you have a saddle pad underneath it so it doesn't wear on the horse. Now, I don't have a saddle pad here today because we're just saddling my steer. But don't forget, you want to have your saddle pad underneath. So first off, when you go and saddle your horse, you're going to start out with the breast collar. And it goes around the chest of the horse and comes to this side and attaches to your D-ring for your breast collar over here. And then you hook it up here. And there's a middle strap here that goes between the front legs and it attaches to the cinch. Now Mary, can you tell me what the cinch is? That's right. It's this part right here that goes underneath the horse's stomach. Now this one is made of wool and they can be made of plastic or wool or all different types. But preferably we like to go and use the wool because it's nicer on the horse's stomach and you don't get saddle sores. Because if a horse has saddle sores, it won't be rideable. But this cinch comes from this side, underneath their stomach, and it attaches to their cinch strap. Now the cinch strap comes underneath the saddle right here, and it goes through the rigging D. Now this holds on your cinch. Now the rigging D on this is just made of leather and built into the saddle. More other saddles have a fancy metal D-ring right here that it would go through. But this one, since it's a barrel saddle, is made a lot lighter and it's just made out of leather to keep it light so you can go faster. And then back here we have your back cinch, which is made out of leather, since it doesn't have near as much weight bearing on it for the saddle. It's more of a backup plan to keep the back end of your saddle on in case your horse is bucking or if you're team roping and you're pulling a really heavy steer with it. So your back cinch will come from this side and it'll go around underneath their stomach and go to the back billet. Now on the other side we have another back billet, and then we have an off billet, which is on the off side that you saddle your horse. Now most of the time, you saddle your horse on the right side, because most horses are comfortable with that side compared to the left side. So now we're going to go on to the parts of your main saddle. So here we have the horn, and this one is made just small enough you can wrap your hand around it when you're going really fast to hold you on during a barrel race. And then we have the seat that goes back to the cantle. Now the cantle's the back of the seat where it's made high enough to keep you in the seat. And barrel saddles are known to have really tall ones to keep you in there when they're going really fast. And this one has a rawhide cantle on it, and other ones can be made of leather or any material the saddle maker decides to use. And then we also have the seat jockey. So remember, it comes from the seat to the seat jockey, and we have the front jockey. Now it might look like the same piece of leather, and it is, but remember, the seat jockey is where your leg sits, and then there's the front jockey. We also have the rear jockey or the rear housing, and then we also have a hoof pick holder. Now, we talked about the frog. You use the hoof pick to pick out the horse's feet, and we'll learn more about that when we saddle a real horse. And then also, most saddles have a rear skirt, but since this is a barrel saddle, a rear skirt is just a bunch more leather right here, which we'll learn about when we talk about the types of saddles. But barrel saddles don't always have one since they're made to be really light and go really fast. And then the main part of this seat is made out of suede, and then we have rough out leather down here. Now Jill, can you tell me what rough out leather is? No, but rough out leather is when they attach the leather upside down so it's rough to keep you in the saddle but not rough enough to make you sore. And then the suede also keeps you in the saddle better so you can stay in. We're doing really fast runs on your horse. Now remember, this is a barrel saddle. What kind of saddle would you use that you want to get out of the saddle? Bob, that's right, steer wrestling. So when you steer wrestle, you come out of your horse and slide on to wrestle the steer. So wouldn't you want it to be slick so you could get out? That's right. So they have a slick seat, and they have slick seat jockeys to make sure you can get out faster. They also have a really flat horn instead of one that's up like this, so you can go and hold on to it but not get hooked on it when you lean over to reach for the steer. Now, another type of saddle would be a trail saddle, and trail saddles have a lot of strings hanging down and a lot of hooks to hook gear on when you're out on the trail for a few days, weeks, months, you name it, so you can be ready for anything that comes your way. And this is our cinch strap holder, as I was talking about earlier. And we also have the stirrup. Now the stirrup is what you put your foot through when you're riding the horse, and it keeps you on the horse. And then we have the stirrup hobble. Now there's hobbles that go on your horse's feet that we'll talk about later when we get more in depth on tack. But this is your stirrup hobble, which leads up to your fender. Now your fender is just like a car fender. It keeps you protected from hitting things. Now this fender protects you from the bottom of the saddle so you don't get saddle sores. So remember, a car and a saddle have a fender, a horn, and a seat. So it can go and keep you on here and keep you protected. And then we'll talk about bronc saddles. Now bronc saddles look a lot like this one, except they're a lot less fancy. This one has silver metal on it. Bob, can you tell me what those are? No, that's not quite right, but these are conchos. They come in all shapes and sizes and even different colors, and they come on saddles, bridles, and a lot of different tack you use on horses. They're commonly used to go and keep things on your saddle, like this one's keeping these leather pieces on. But as I was saying, bronc saddles are a lot less fancy. Usually, the rear jockey is a lot closer fitted to the seat, so it's even smaller and lighter than this one. And bronc saddles also are missing a horn. That's because when you're riding a bronc, you don't want to get hit by the horn if you go and hit it. And then they also have swells, just like this saddle, and the swells keep your legs in the seat. And then there's also a gullet, which I'm putting my hand under, and it goes over the horse's shoulder. You want to make sure the gullet is wide enough that it doesn't pinch your horse's shoulders and it fits them properly, because if it doesn't fit a horse, they can buck or they can get saddle sores from it, and nobody wants that. So then we'll talk about team roping. Now team roping is when you go out and rope a steer, and it can be 600 pounds, 800 pounds, you name it. So you want your saddle to hold up to pulling a lot of weight. But this barrel horn, it's not going to work. You have to have a really big horn to keep the weight of all that wrapped around your horn when you dally your rope on it. And rope saddles also have a little bit lower cantle on them since they're not getting bounced around as much as you do in barrel racing. And they also have a little bit lower swell, so it's easier to dally your rope on the horn. Now there's also breakaway saddles, which are a lot like the team roping saddles, but breakaway, you just rope your calf and they yank the rope off of your saddle. So it's not near as much weight bearing, and they also combine it in with ladies roping. So ladies roping has a little bit smaller horn, and sometimes it's a little shorter than what guys roping horns are. And so that makes it just a little bit different than guys' saddles. But otherwise, girls and guys' roping saddles are usually about the same. Now there's also cutting saddles when you go and cut the cow, and they have really, really low cantles on them because the people are just mainly sitting on the saddle doing pivots and turns. And they also have a really, really low horn, about this tall, so all it is just to be there for looks because they're not allowed to go and touch the horn when they're working the cattle. And then they also have swells that are a little shorter, but they're a lot wider to go and keep the rider in better when they're doing the really fast stops and turns when they're tracking a cow. So as I said, they have a shorter horn and a little bit shorter swells to allow them to move with the horse better, but without touching it, since they get disqualified for doing that. So as I said, when you saddle a horse, it's breast collar, cinch, back cinch. Now when you go to unsaddle a horse, make sure you go back cinch unhooked first, and then breast collar second, and the cinch last. Because if you reverse the order or mix it up, sometimes you can end up with a horse that has a saddle hanging underneath it, which ends in a bad situation and can sometimes ruin horses. It scares them so bad. So remember, back cinch or breast collar first, and then the cinch. So that way you can safely saddle and unsaddle your horse. And always remember to put a saddle pad underneath the saddle. Now Jill, can you tell me what this part is? The horn, that's right. Now Bob, what's this part? The rear jockey, that's right. So today we learned about how to saddle a horse, the parts of a saddle, and about the different types of saddles. Now tomorrow we'll have a quiz about the parts of the saddle and how to saddle a horse. And tomorrow we'll review the types of saddles, so be sure to study your pamphlet you get tonight on the types of saddles so you're prepared for tomorrow.